because of problems with ethanol, which is what alcohol is. Once it goes into your bloodstream, it travels to the brain, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and attaches itself to the sites, in the brain, the cells in the brain that produce dopamine. These dopamine sites. This is what the person experiences when they drink alcohol, a release of dopamine. So the brain gets a cookie, you can say, or a present for drinking alcohol. It gets dopamine, and that's why people become dope addicted. That's why all drugs are called dope, because they all have the ability to attach themselves to the area of the brain, the pleasure centers of the brain that produce dopamine. Cigarettes do that, alcohol does that, food does that, sex does that, gambling does that, shopping does that. So all these behaviors have the ability to produce a dopamine high. So kids are not getting addicted to pot, they're not getting addicted to coke, they're not getting addicted to crystal meth. This is where people get in trouble. And this is where parents get in trouble, because they don't want to understand the process here. They think that they're fighting a substance, a behavior. They're not. They're fighting a chemistry problem. The brain is being flooded with dopamine, whether you smoke a cigarette, or you steal a car, or you get away with something, and this is where the payoff for enabling comes in, is that when you're getting away with something, the person is getting reinforced by the brain, by giving them a shot of dopamine. And the person is becoming dope addicted. Their brain is becoming dope addicted. So what I have to deal with when a person comes into my office is the fact that once they're not getting these things, once they're not practicing these behaviors, whatever it is, lying, cheating, manipulating, stealing, jumping off of bridges, you name it, there's a million types of behaviors. People call them adrenaline junkies, rush junkies. It's all the same thing. It's a chemistry issue, and it happens in the brain. And when we talk about a brain problem, when we talk about a brain disorder and addiction, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody who's addicted to dopamine, somebody who needs dope. And so what do? You take away pot, they do coke. Take away coke, they start stealing. Take away stealing, they start lying. So this is why it's important that the enabling process stops early on in the development issue. It's very critical that the parents hold these kids responsible for their behaviors. And if you say, I ask anybody in any room where I talk to parents, how many people in this room consequence their children or give consequences for bad behavior? How many people in this room do that? And I'm pretty sure if you have 100 parents in a room, 100 parents will raise their hands. Everybody consequences their kids for doing bad behavior. Now the second question I ask these parents is, how many people stick with it? How many people follow through with it? No matter what happens, whether the kid comes and says, Daddy, I love you so much, you're the best daddy in the world. Mommy, you were so sweet, let me kiss you, Mommy, let me hug you. I've been, I really, really, really believe that I did something wrong, and I really, 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 truly believe that these consequences are working because I'm repenting. I'm full of remorse. And they know everything. These kids are not stupid. These kids know everything. They know how to work their parents, like a fine-tuned, machine. They know every little button to push. They know the weaknesses of the mother. They know if they're having problems with the father, the relationship. They use everything. They drive wedges between the parents. They don't do this because they want to, or they sit there and they concoct it in their brain. This is just something that happens because it happens at a subconscious level. A kid wants what he wants when he wants it. That's all. That's all it is. That's what's pushing the lever. This is what's driving the behavior. They don't understand, and they shouldn't understand because they haven't gotten to that part of the developmental process yet, that they can't get what they want when they want it. You understand? For survival, these kids have to be built with this, I want what I want when I want it. Because how else are you going to get fed when you're 2 years old? You're not going to sit there and talk about world economics and food banks. You're going to cry and yell and scream until you get what you want. So it's a built-in behavior. So enabling starts to happen extremely early on in the developmental process, and then it has to stop. 13, 14, 15, when these kids become, to the point where they can do, they go from concrete operational, and they move away from that stage of their life developmentally, and they become abstract operational, where they can deal with concepts and ideas like stealing, lying, cheating, at that point, the parents have to make a change and start changing the consequences and start doing something about their kids' behavior, because if not, they're going to be out of control. And the end result is real simple. I've seen it a million times. Seen that movie a million times. The end result is, at first they put up and they enable, and fix and fix and fix, and then they get tired. Somewhere around 24, for some reason, the parents get tired. They're like sick of it. They're like sick of, giving another car, getting another school. The kid is, in Miami-Dade, and he's on the 10-year program. He's in medical school, even though there isn't no medical school there. He's been there for 10 years. Take a class, drop a class. I didn't like the teacher didn't like me. And then all of a sudden, he's 24, and the parents are like, okay, that's it. I'm done. Get out of my house. Get out of my house. So all of a sudden now, all the enabling just cease, and here we got a kid who's emotionally 14 years old. He's intellectually and physically 24 years old. Mentally, he's 50 years old because he knows everything. And now you want him out of the house. Get out. I'm done. Now I'm going to do, tough core, hardcore parenting. Now I'm going to do tough love. They go to an AA meeting and they get to an Al-Anon meeting, and now they're tough love. So what are you doing? You're throwing a 24-year-old into the streets, has no idea how to deal with life. He's a recipe for disaster. This kid has no tools. All he knows how to do is lie, cheat, manipulate, and steal to get what he wants. So what is he going to do? He's going to gravitate on the street, it's not hard to do, towards those kinds of criminally minded people. The reason we have 3 million people incarcerated in this country is because of these types of behaviors. It's because people feel free to take stuff that doesn't belong to them. People feel free to cross boundaries and take away other people's rights because they started this when they were kids. And nobody ever told them that it was wrong. No parent ever said, stop. You're not going to get away with this. You're not sleeping tonight. It's okay. A lot of nights I don't sleep. If I had to support 4 kids and a wife, sometimes sleep is not an option. So you can't sleep tonight. You're going to work and you're going to do your stuff, and that's it. And you're not going out for a month. I don't care what you say. When I was raising my kid, supposedly he was a great kid, and he is, thank God, a great kid. But, everybody would tell me that, oh, your son's such a great kid. But, he screwed up, he made mistakes. I had to give him consequences. I didn't have a lot of opportunities, so when I did, I took them. And I gave him consequences. And then I would get the same thing. First he would go, and he'd go get his mom. And, he would talk to his mom, and mom would come in and say, honey, he's doing this, and Brendan's doing that, and, he's doing great, and, he's so remorseful, and, he regrets what he did, and I'm like, no. He's got a consequence, he's got another week, no. So she would leave, and he wouldn't stop there. He'd go get my in-laws. He would call my in-laws up, and he would get them on the phone, because he's an 8-year-old. He's an 8-year-old doing all this negotiating behind my back. And next thing you know, I get a call from my in-laws. Hey, how you doing? And I'm like, calling me at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. What's going on here? Sure enough, we got a call from Brendan, and he told us this, and that, and we know he's a great kid. Why don't you give him a break? And I'm like, click. You're done. So, once he got frustrated, and once he knew he couldn't get to me, he went for the weapon of mass destruction. That's my mom. And he would call my mother in New Jersey. She's an 8-year-old, okay, making long-distance phone calls. And my mother would get on the phone, and of course, she would guilt-trip me to death. Remember when you were his age, you would do this and this and that, and you got away with it? And I go, yeah, Mom, that's why I got into so much trouble. Thanks a lot. I don't want to blame you for all the problems I got into as an adolescent, but yeah, that's what you did. My dad would give me a consequence, and she would take it away. And she would, lie to my dad. And my dad would go to work, and then, she had 4 boys, and we were all demons, we were all bad. And, she would cover for us, and she would lie for us, and she would do all this stuff for us, and eventually it got us into a lot of trouble. Eventually it got me into